So, hello everyone, and welcome back to STW Sports. I'm host Samuel Wright, and today I'm joined by Huddersfield Town fan Oliver Eaton. And Oliver, welcome back to the show. It's been a while since I had you on, but not much has really changed for Huddersfield this season. It's been a very good season from pretty much start up to now. We're very nearly at the end of the 46-game season anyway. Very much looking like Huddersfield will be in the playoffs. It'd take a massive collapse if you weren't to be. What have you made of the season, Oliver? I imagine it's exceeded yours and every Huddersfield fan's expectations.
Just a bit. It's funny, isn't it? It's a recurring theme that we don't do mid-table seasons. And obviously last season and previous seasons, we've talked about us possibly surviving relegation. And then we're coming into this season looking probably even weaker as a squad. Obviously, Corbran, it was the big chance. Will he actually come back in the Championship and do something good? We had that very hard hit. If you remember the Fulham game, we started 5-1 loss, I think, at home. And then all of a sudden, then wins coming in. And we've been up there. And you've seen, Sam, we've been consistently up there. And as soon as we hit November, we hit that unbeaten streak, what lasted a good 3-4 months. And those points there has really propelled us up to the position we're at. And no, the short answer to your question, no, I did not expect us to be there. And I'm surprised we've stayed here this long, but we're enjoying it. 3 games left.
I mean, you obviously, as you know very well, once you're in the playoffs, it's a lottery, really. I mean, the Championship playoffs are very strong this year as well. You've had the success story of Luton Town. No matter what happens to them, they can be very proud of their efforts. Nottingham Forest, who've risen from pretty much the bottom of the table at the start to where they are now. Sheffield United, likewise, as well. Really poor start for them. They've came up. Millwall have got an outside chance. Middlesbrough have got an outside chance. QPR were up there all season till their recent collapse. It's very strong, the playoffs this year, no matter who goes in. You are already 4 points off Bournemouth, to be fair, in second, but Bournemouth do have a couple of games in hand, so very unlikely you will pit them to second place, you'd say. But, what would you say, really, in the playoffs, out of all the teams, which team do you think right now is the most likely if you're looking, and how strong do you think the playoffs will be this year?
I think there's one team that all of us, I think, are fearing to get, and that is that Nottingham Forest fixture. We've obviously faced them 3 times this season. They beat us at our ground, which was actually their first win of the season, I think, right when they was down at the bottom. God, that seems a long time ago now when they were down towards the bottom. But then we faced them at their ground when they were picking up this form. And we got one of them smash and grab 1-0 victories. Obviously, the FA Cup came. It was kind of our young under-18 team, which lost fine. Forest, though, for me, are the team to watch in that playoffs. Sheffield United as well. We have had a win and a draw against them. Millwall, I think I do fear a bit. And you could see them. You're seeing the point difference there. Sheffield, Millwall. Blackburn as well. They've also been up a lot higher. They were third. They were pushing for that top 2 at one point before Bournemouth picked up that form again. I think Borough, they're not in the best of forms at the moment. But as a quick stop tour of all the teams there. But the team we want to face is Luton Town. The team we don't want to face is Forest.
Yeah, I think that's a very fair assessment. As well as Luton have done, one thing they really lack in this position is experience. And I think Luton, a little bit like Barnsley last season, are kind of there as they've got nothing to lose going into the games, but other teams would probably fancy themselves to be a little bit stronger. But to be fair, Kenilworth Road certainly not an easy place to go, and I wouldn't like to go there on a very atmospheric evening in the playoffs if I was any team. So that could be some of the plays their part there. But one thing I do want to touch on is experience in the playoffs, and that's one thing Huddersfield do have, of course, from 5 years ago now. Obviously, it was a playoffs that have been, I won't say criticised, but very much talked about as one of probably the dullest playoffs ever. Of course, there wasn't there's any goals scored over the few games. There was barely any, if so. Obviously, it doesn't matter if you're a Huddersfield fan, you won it in the end. But how do you think that experience, though, from 5 years ago, do you think that could play a part if you do get into the playoffs this time? And, of course, you've got there a bit more convincingly, many people would say.
Yeah, no, you're right. With the convincingly, I think we've had more time to prepare for it. And I feel the players are probably in the best place for that. In terms of experience, obviously, in terms of players who was in the squad in 2017, it's only Jonathan Hogg. So obviously, as that kind of captain figure, you expect him to kind of share off those experiences. But I think we're coming into this very fresh. We're coming into it after 3 years down towards the bottom of the championship, and well, of the last 3 seasons in leagues, including the Premier League season. So I think we're coming into this as fresh as the other 4 teams, because all 4 teams there, obviously Forest have flirted around there, but they've had their issues of dropping out late on. But I think all 4 teams, even including Sheffield United, the kind of more inexperienced compared to some of your stronger teams what have been there recently, if you get what I mean there. I think certainly Luton will have nothing to lose. I don't think we'll have anything to lose. I mean, I'm sure the position and our season kind of suggests otherwise, but the fact is we've been underdogs all season, and fine, we've earned our position there. I don't know if we've played to the level to get to 3rd place, but the key thing is we're getting the results when you needed them. And in terms of, again, long story short for your question there, I think the fans will know what to expect more, but I think players are coming into it fresh, and it's going to be exciting. And I hope they use these 3 games to really hone in on how they want to tackle the playoffs this season.
Yeah, I want to speak about the remaining games for Huddersfield. Obviously, I'm aware I think Nottingham Forest still have a couple of games in hand in 5th place. So you might say they might even get that 3rd spot if they were to win them, and they're certainly looking good at the moment. But obviously thinking about your remaining games, you've got good fixtures, really. I think Barnsley, a chance to relegate Barnsley, and what a difference a year makes. I remember this time last year, we were sitting here, of course, on my podcast saying Barnsley could do the fairy tale, go up to the Premier League, and now they're a game away from getting relegated, just under a year later. I think no one expected them to repeat the miracle, really, of last season, but don't think many people anticipated them to drop off this hard either. Then you've got Coventry. The Ricoh Arena is a very tough place to go. We know that, but a Coventry team with very little to play for might work in your favour. And then Bristol City at home, which is a very good final game because, again, they're a team who have nothing to play for. So 3 games, really, that I think Huddersfield fans will certainly like at this point of the season, and a chance, of course, to relegate Yorkshire rivals.
Yeah, well, I think it is a bit sad for Barnsley that they are in the position have been this season, but taking my unbiased hat off, it'd be good to relegate them tomorrow. I think they've not had the best of seasons, and I think it's kind of the same level as likeliness of us making the playoffs as them relegation in terms of the potential swing to change that outcome, shall we say. So yeah, I think it just makes a change that it's us relegating a team rather than other teams potentially relegating us, if you get my drift, especially the last 2-3 years. But we have, regards to their position, we've had some tough games against Barnsley this season. I know in the FA Cup, they did take us, I think it was an early 1-0 win in the end for us. Or for 2, I can't remember. I was at the game, I can't remember it anymore. But I know it was a 1-1 at their ground. It was a tough game. It was at a period where we kept scoring first and dropping the 2 points. And I think it will be tough again. We've just announced we've got 3 major losses in terms of injuries, including Sobber Thomas, Levi Colville, and Danny Ward. And all of a sudden, we haven't actually got the strike force there. So it's going to be a lot tougher game. But I do expect, I think Barnsley will be relegated. If not tomorrow, I think by the end of the weekend, I think it would seal their fate.
Yeah, and obviously the other 2 games as well, of course, interesting games, but of course they're more against mid-table teams, very little to play for. Games that most teams who are playing for something like at this stage. I want to mention Carlos Corbran now, Oliver. Obviously, we mentioned him a lot last season, thinking, it's his first season in charge. It was a bit of a difficult season. It was behind closed doors. And of course, I remember around about Christmas time, you were in a good position, really. But then obviously injuries, I guess you can say, really caught up second half of the season. You got dragged into, I won't say a relegation battle, but you were dragged down to the wrong end of the table, a bit like Birmingham this season in a way, where you've been dragged towards the 19th, 20th position and a bit of a poor position, really. But in the end, Corbran this season's turned it round very, very well, and I think he deserves a lot of credit for that. And where are you standing with Corbran, the job he's done at the club anyway?
He's worked miracles, actually, and it's been a funny one because Also, I can't speak for the 2022 because I think everyone in terms of fans are well on board with him now. But I know when we hit a very rocky patch of form, I think probably October time, and a lot of people, and including myself to an extent, at one point was kind of calling for his head. And this was the case of we were still in the top 10, and I think we just drifted down into 9th, 10th position, and we just lost to Middlesbrough. And I think that would by far, I know it was a weird game, but it was one of the worst games I've seen Town play in a long time, which is very odd considering the context of the season. But we, to be fair to him and the squad and the financial situation going on at the club, he's built a team of believers. He's got that positivity, and as I said earlier, he's not necessarily winning games in a beautiful way. We're not necessarily looking good, but we're getting the results, we're getting the goals, and we're defending very well. And I think that, after everything, is the key thing this season. We've defended well. I think 18 clean sheets we've got this season. I think we got single figures last season for clean sheets. That when you build that foundation, even with the type of attack what we have, where it's sometimes it'd be misfiring, I think it's really worked for us today. And I'm a big fan of Corbran in the second half of the season. I think he's still got a lot to do in terms of getting our play style right. If he's aiming for a Leeds United kind of style, that is. You assume he is kind of coming through from Bielsa's shadow, shall we say? But the fact is, he's grinding results, and in the end of the day, we're in third place, 73 points. You can't really say he's done a bad job this season.
No, absolutely not. And I believe this answer might change all of a soon if you do go on to win the playoffs or anything. But right now, who would you say has been Huddersfield's player of the season going off the first 43 games? Which player for you? I know it's been more of a collective team effort, most people would say, but if there has been a player who stood out, who would you say?
A lot of people externally, I think, are going to look at their Sobra Thomas's and to extent Danny Ward. Fine, he's gone against what many expected him to do this season. He's said, no, I can score still. I think though, and it links back to what I said about defence, you have to be looking at Lee Nichols, the goalkeeper. Obviously, he was a bench warmer for MK Dons before he joined us. What a risk to bring him into a championship team, and then it's paid off, 18 clean sheets. You've also got, I think, the two centre back pairing as well. And sorry, you wanted one now. I'm going to give you three here, but I think Tom Lees and Matt Pearson, the really old school centre backs. And if you look at how many they've scored this season from corners, and as you've seen, set pieces are one of our strong points this season. They've been very key in that and the defensive. So I think as a little defensive triangle there, Lee Nichols is probably my standout number one player, but Tom Lees and Matt Pearson are definitely up there as key to our, should we say, key to the foundation building of the team before you get to Thomas, Danny Ward.
Yeah, just going to speak about now, Oliver, two things that, non-Huddersfield related. There's two things I think most people would have called at the start of the season. One of them is Fulham are promoted, and assuming they're going to go up as champions as well. I think everyone at the start of the season pretty much had Fulham to win the league, obviously with the quality of squad they had, and of course having Mitrovic, who's scored a fantastic amount of goals this season, really 40 goals I believe it is now.
Crazy,
and
crazy.
The other one is Derby County being relegated. In fairness to Derby, they've probably been relegated a lot later than a lot of people anticipated. Really. Obviously, you played Derby on the opening day of the season away from home, and they got a 1-1 draw in a game where they didn't really have too many players really either. So full credit to them for that. But with that though, obviously, but that being confirmed for Derby and Fulham, what sort of, what's your main opinion of that? Many people saw it coming, but what's your opinion, especially on Derby, of course, who've made much more of a fight of it than most people thought?
So first of all, on Fulham, as you said, they were expected to do that, and that's all down to Mitrovic and the strength of the team. It's the same could be said for Bournemouth being up there. But I like to remind everyone that somehow we went to Craven Cottage and got that 2-1 win, which is a fantastic result for Huddersfield. That, but no, Fulham are different gravy, should we say? And I'll add Bournemouth to that when we played them the other week with that potential of, if we win here, we could actually fight for automatics. again, Bournemouth, completely different quality. But let's talk about Derby, as you said. You've got to give huge credit to the job Wayne Rooney has done there to stay at the club, because you kind of expect someone like Wayne Rooney, who's not necessarily as experienced in football management and the big aura of what surrounds him, you would have expected him probably to jump ship when it all started falling apart around him at the end of last season and start of this season. But he's built that squad and he's built that belief, very similar to Wigan when they was kind of doomed to the point deduction. Was that last season or season before? They had that belief, they had that push, and as you said, it's taken them up to this point, 3-4 games left of the season, to actually be confirmed. So you have to give them credit for that. It's a shame to see them down there where they've shown that much effort. I mean, 13 wins, fine, it'll put them in the bottom 8, but still, it wouldn't relegate them without the deductions. And it's a shame what's happened there. We all hope to see what happens, see if they can mend whatever's happening behind the scenes. But start the season, they had that belief there at Pride Park. They got that point. But same can be said when they played us in the second fixture, because they just look like a skeleton of a team. But I think you hit nail on the head in your question, Sam. Fair play to them. But it is what it is there, sadly.
Yeah, they've got to give their best attempts of coming back up in League One last season. Of course, Fulham have also got to give their best attempts at obviously staying up in the Premier League, which everyone knows is a bit of a tall ask, of course. And we all like to have Norwich and Watford both return to the Championship. So normal service may be resumed, as many people predicted at the start of the season. But yeah, I mean, obviously moving on now, Oliver, to the final sort of question, going back to Huddersfield, though. If you were to grade your season out of 10, what would you give it? And the other question I'm going to ask in that is, which 4 teams do you think are going to be in the playoffs, and who's your winner at this moment in time?
Right in the season out of 10, I think, quite honestly, you have to look at it's got to have to be a 10. I mean, not one person expected us to be in the top 10, let alone third place. So, regardless of what happens, this season's a 9 and a 10 for, outstanding. It's been it's just been nice to enjoy the top half of the table. It's so weird not looking and fearing other games. So no, as for that, I think, you're the top end of the scale. Predictions, though, and damn, Sam, this is look at how much it's changed from month to month. You've had your Blackburns and QPRs up there. They've suddenly disappeared. Forest are down in the relegation zone. They're suddenly looking favourites to even make the top 2. I think definite. We're obviously Huddersfield are going to be in that. I think that could be confirmed tomorrow or the Friday game, whenever your viewers are listening to this. I think Forest, you have to say they're kind of safely going to be there. They've got the games in hand. They're currently 5 points ahead of Millwall, who are just outside. But then that leads you to the question of who is going to be the other 2 teams. You look at Luton; they're looking in terms of points. I think they could actually confirm the playoffs themselves this weekend. They're actually close to us. I think actually Luton Town may scrape it through. So that takes you then to that 6th place spot. And that is currently contested between Sheffield United on 66, Millwall on 65, Blackburn 63 points. Middlesbrough got that game in hand. They could, if they could overcome this strange form they found themselves in, they could suddenly be within a shout, but they need to act and change their form now. And then you've got QPR, who are still hanging on there despite the three losses in the last 5. They're still hanging on there. And then again, Coventry City, somehow they could turn it around. It's looking a bit impossible. So who do I predict? I'm going to go for Millwall, actually. I'm going to go for Millwall. They seemed a very tough side when they played us. And I've been watching them because they were around the 13th, 12th spot for quite a while. But all of a sudden, they became the best form team in the Championship, I believe. Certainly last month. I know the forms kind of dipped tad now when it doesn't want to dip, but they're 1 point off. I don't know what their remaining fixtures are, but I actually think they will nick it. So, yeah. Short answer again. I know I talk a lot. Sorry. Huddersfield, Luton, Forest. I'm going to go for Millwall.
Well, that would certainly be a playoffs that no one would have said at the start of the season. That's for sure. I don't think any person would have predicted. Maybe Forest, but the other three teams, I think Huddersfield, Luton, and Millwall. I mean, Millwall do get there, and Millwall in the Premier League. People mentioned Luton in the Premier League being strange, but Millwall would also be equally as strange as well. And I think them versus West Ham would certainly be a game to watch for a lot of people. But yeah, I think that's all the questions I've got for you, to be honest. And obviously Huddersfield is looking like you are going to get in the playoffs, which is massive really this season. You do have the experience, but no matter who gets there, it's going to be a hell of a playoffs, I'm sure, as it always is. And
it is.
Yeah, obviously.
I'm good to roll reverse here, Sam. I don't know if this has ever been done, but who do you think is going to actually make the playoffs? Because you've spoken to many guys from the Championship. Who do you get an idea for this year?
Yeah, like I say, roles reverse. I think Huddersfield will get there. I think they deserve it. You've been consistent all season. Luton, I think they deserve it as well. I think the one thing Luton have going for them is the fairy tale story. I mean, Luton to be in the playoffs is an absolute finishing 12th last season. I thought was a bit of a miracle. So for them to be 4th at this stage, and obviously with a Nathan Jones who pretty much ruined his legacy at the club for a little while, he's gone back there to show the spirit that he has. Is incredible, really, because he's gone there and he kept them up, obviously, mid-table last season. And now they're here. Forest, they've got all the momentum and they've got a very exciting team. They've already shown they can beat Premier League opposition. They beat Arsenal and Leicester, of course. They hammered Leicester, really. I think that 6th spot, I'm actually going to give it to... I'm going to give it Sheffield United. I think they'll just sneak it. I think they've had a good season. They've got some good players. They started poorly, but they've found their feet, really. And I think that Heckingbottom's done a much better job than I thought. I didn't really get the hype when they appointed him. In terms of my playoff winners, I mean, I don't really know who to say about that. But I'm probably, if I'm predicting right at this moment in time, I think Nottingham Forest have got the momentum. So they could even get top 2 Forest, in my opinion, because they've played equal games to Bournemouth. Yes, they're 7 points behind. It's a long way. But if Bournemouth lose one and Forest obviously win, I can see Forest winning all their games as well, so it could be either way. But I do still think Bournemouth will secure 2nd spot. Fulham will be champions, and I think to go down, you're looking at definitely Peterborough, Barnsley, and Derby, of course. But for that, it's just a case of who finishes bottom. But yeah, I think I'm going to go with Forest to win the playoffs. Sorry, Oliver. That's just me.
I know, I agree.
It's very, very close. It could be anyone. And so whoever wins it, unless it's Sheffield United because they were in the Prem last season, I would not be disappointed.
Yeah, and again, 2017 shows you Fulham and Sheffield Wednesday are favourites, and then those both teams, not one of them win the final, so you never know. Anyway, back over to you, Sam.
Yeah, no, that's fine. So yeah, Oliver, that's all we've got time for anyway on Championship. Actually, just one more question, Oliver, actually I'm going to ask, and excluding Alexander Mitrovic because he's too easy, as in, who's your Championship player of the season?
Yeah, I think there's that Forest player who's been very, I can't remember his name off the top of my head, but you'll probably say it's a Forest. I think, is he Loney?
Brennan Johnson.
I think he's been very impressive. You look towards him, but you said it in the question. You can't look past Mitrovic. 40 plus goals this season. It's an unbelievable record.
Yeah, no, fantastic. Well, yeah, that is all the questions we've got anyway over this season. Thank you very much for joining me. And yes, good luck to Huddersfield, of course, in their playoff push. And yeah, hoping for a very entertaining end to the Championship season.
Thank you very much.